Welcome back to the shop and welcome back for another episode of Cody Builds. I'm just gonna get this out of the way right up front. I've been under the weather the last week. If my voice sounds a little off, it's a little scratchy. Been pretty sick over the course of the last week, picked up an illness. I haven't been in the shop for about a week and a half. I had some buddies come into town last weekend, entertained them, had a really good time. But following them leaving town, I came down with a real bad sore throat, fever, kind of knocked me on my butt for a few days. So I haven't been out in the shop for about a week and a half. Actually, the last thing I've done, it was the rocker panel replacement that you guys saw last week. So finally, I'm excited to get back out here. I've been itching to get back out here and continue working on this cab. We're knocking it off little bit by bit, and today we're gonna make the next step. So today what we're gonna be working on is the lower door jamb corners. We hadn't welded those in on those last two videos. Let me take you in for a little look and show you what we're in store for this week. So this is where we left things off last week. We've got this structure all welded in. We did not get this lower door jamb corner welded back in yet. And in all honesty, because our seam back here is so bad and rotted, the back half of this cab is actually still disconnected from the floor pretty much. If we were to take, I do have a strap in here right now kind of helping keep things kind of square, but if we were to take that off, you can actually shift the back corners of this cab around pretty easily. So the next most important thing is that we tie in this structure back into our rocker structure and our floor structure. So we're gonna work on this door jamb corner today. Now, I have a patch panel. I'm gonna stick this up in place here, and I'm gonna show you some of the challenges that we're facing. The first thing you will probably notice is how chewed up and busted up this section of the original panel is from having to drill out and remove the original door corner. That's obviously got to be fixed. The next thing you might notice is I've got the patch panel down here in the bottom corner, and if you look up top here, I'm going to see if I can do this with one hand. I got to hold the panel in and point things out. If you look up in here, you can kind of see that we're right, these holes that are drilled are at the very top of the panel, and actually the patch panel doesn't even go all the way up to the top of those drilled out holes. So this patch panel, original patch panel, seems to be just a hair shorter than the original door corner. So what I need to do is I need to extend this about 3/4 of an inch down. So I'm gonna cut all of this section out, and we're gonna extend this down a little bit lower into this overlap line here. I've already got a template here, and this is just going to help us get the flat piece of sheet metal cut out to size, and then we'll start getting it bent into position. And once I have it in position, I might even come in here and tack this in place at the bottom here just to hold it in place so that I can get things kind of aligned up here. And then once I have this replacement piece cut out and tacked in, the new one tacked in, then we'll remove this, we'll get this welded up, and then lastly, we'll get our new door jamb corner welded into place. So that's on the agenda for today. A little bit of limited time today, not sure how far we're getting, but we're gonna get started. The first thing up, I'm gonna cut a piece of flat steel first from that template, and then we'll start getting that bent into shape so that we can use that to replace the mangled up piece of original sheet metal. All right, that was actually a little bit more difficult than I anticipated. I've just got that cheap little brake that I got off Amazon for like 30 or 40 bucks. It flexes really bad, it's not real precise. I was really having trouble getting my bends lined up, but we suffered through. I think I got something that's gonna work here, right? So I've got this piece cut now, and this is essentially gonna go in here, like this, right? We're gonna cut this section out and weld this back in. Now, I still have the original cab corner under here as well as the patch. That original patch comes up to about this height here, okay? I can see the line where the Bondo's cracking all the way across here. Now, this bad part about this is our new patch, and it's gonna sit somewhere around right here. So the old patch is all the way up here, the new patch is down here. That gives us about a 2.5 inch gap, probably about 2 inches there, where our new patch is not going to rise to the height of the old patch. So I want to actually get out the double layer of metal that's up in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark this line where this original patch is. I'm actually going to cut that cab corner out all the way. That's going to bring that up about 2 inches above where I need to be. Then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to come probably about 1 inch to 1/2 inch below where our new patch is going to be, and I'm going to cut that strip out of this cab corner, and I'm going to stitch weld just that individual piece right back in. That's going to make up our 2 inch gap. This metal's good, it's not rusty, so I should be able to use this just to make up that 2 inch difference. I'm going to have 2 stitch lines here. That's a little bit annoying, but that's okay. It's not that big of a deal. I'm thinking on the cab, I'm gonna go ahead and do the metal work, the Bondo work, and everything that we didn't do on the bed. So the bed's gonna be all kind of scarred up, but the cab will actually look like it's the factory original sheet metal. At least that's kind of what I'm thinking at the moment. The only thing exposed on the cab is gonna be the cab corners here that you'll actually see. As far as like exposed weld lines, and it's just this little bit here. So I think I'm just okay. I'm just gonna go ahead and from this trim line down, we'll repaint the corner of the cab. It's not that big a deal. Actually, the back side of the cab was never painted. When they repainted this truck, it's just in primer. So we're gonna have to reshoot the back of the cab as well anyways, once we get it all patched up, and I want it to be protected and not rust. I think that's what I need to do next year. I need to clear out this original section here. That will allow me to come back in here and cut out what I need to cut out of this, the door jamb piece, get that welded in, then we'll get some of this repaired in the corner here that my patch isn't gonna cover, and then we will re-stitch in our lower piece, then we'll be ready to install the door jamb and then the cab corner. So there's a kind of like piece by piece, we're gonna have to piece this thing together. And that's okay, I kind of knew that was how this was gonna go. Once you dig into it, you find one thing, you find the next, you find the next. It's a little bit annoying, and I wish I could do this in one go rather than having to have, you know, my 2 stitch lines around here. But it's really not that big a deal. It's gonna improve the cab itself. I won't have this doubled up layer of sheet metal here that potentially could trap dirt and moisture and rust this cab corner right back out in a short amount of time. So I'm gonna go ahead and mark this out, get this part of the cab corner cut off, and then we'll start getting our door jamb fitted up once that's off, and cutting out all this rot and figuring out what I need to do to weld my new patch piece back in here, somewhere in here like that. All right, cab corner's out. You can see, I mean, this is all kind of crusty back here. Now I'm gonna be able to get in here with a wire wheel, clean a lot of this up, give this the rust reformer treatment. It's gonna help protect that for quite a bit while longer. You know, I probably could have cut all this out a while ago to have better access to this. And if I guess that's one thing I would say is if you're considering you're gonna have to do a cab corner or any work like this, in addition to your rockers, you're better off just cutting the cab corner out first. It's gonna give you access to all of the welds that you need to drill out for your rocker. But now I've got access where I can start to fit in our door jamb piece here, which is going to come up behind here. Kind of set that in there, and then I can start to fit in this piece that I made myself. Is this going to be perfect? No, it probably is not going to, but it's going to be a lot better than what we had in there before. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to clamp the door corner in place, and then I'm going to figure out where I need to cut up here inside the door jamb, and we'll get that cut out, and I'll start getting kind of this piece fixed up here, and then get this tacked in where it needs to be so that we can then get our door corner tacked in as well. All right, first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna try and get this as close as I can to where it's gonna live. Should be somewhere around here. Now I'm gonna take this patch, and it's not gonna line up perfectly at the moment because we got all this crummy metal in the way, but all right now I'm looking for is the height at which I wanna start cutting this out. So I'm going to come in here and just mark this top edge. That's going to be my cut line. Okay, now we should be able to see. Yeah, we're gonna be pretty darn good there. That's not bad at all. Now, the thing that is off a little bit in this is the bends in this are, I'm not gonna lie, they're off just a hair because I was using that brake, and these are kind of more rounded over bends, and I just don't have a good way to match the radius of those bends. I tried a couple things. I was trying to hammer over some bolts and things like that, and it just really wasn't working out for me. So what I'm gonna probably do here is, once I get this tacked in place where I like it, there's probably gonna be somewhere about like that. I will probably have to come back in here, put a decent amount of filler weld in some areas, and then we'll grind it smooth, and then we'll get in here with some Bondo and smooth it out a little bit. But I think it's going to turn out pretty nice overall. So, okay, now I'm going to cut this flange off and weld a little piece in here just to kind of clean this flange up a little bit. I still got multiple pieces of metal up in this corner. I am down to just the one single piece of metal around here. I managed to get that patch right at the top, which is great. There's so much Bondo in this back panel though. That's not great. They did the cave and pave like they did on the bed. I can see this is all dented in, and then filled plumb full of Bondo. So we're gonna have to sand all that Bondo out of there, try and knock this back out flush, so that way when we do stitch weld this, instead of overlapping it, everything will line back up. It'll look nice, hopefully, when it's all done. All right, not a finished product by any means, but we're getting close. I've been doing a little bit of finishing work here. Let me give you a look at where we're at right now, so you can see the section we put in. I've got a lot of kind of filling and grinding yet to do, but it's looking really good. I'm really happy with this so far. Let's go ahead and test fit our panel here. This just slides up in there. That sits down in there. Look how nice that looks. Huh? How about it, guys? We are getting there. I'm really liking this. All fresh new metal, everything looking clean. I'm gonna clean up the shop a little bit. I'll be back out here in a couple days to finish this corner up. It's coming along really well. I'm happy with the progress so far. Before I go and weld this door corner in, I am gonna go over squaring the cab one more time. Well, it'll probably be two more times, but I am gonna square the cab again before I weld this panel in, because once we start doing that, now we're starting to get rigidity into the back half of the truck. We're connecting the upper half of the cab down to the floor. So I want to make sure everything's good and square. I don't want to rush that process just yet. But that's going to do it for today. I'll be back out for you guys. That's going to be right now. All right, I told you guys it was only going to be a couple seconds for you. I'm back out in the shop. I'm ready to get back to work on the truck tonight. First thing I want to do before I start welding in that corner piece is I want to re-square up the cab, or at least do a measurement check to make sure that we're squaring the cab. So just like we did in last week's video, I'm going to take a measurement off the back corner of the cab up to the front door hinge. Well, I'm measuring off the hinge and then off of the kind of drip rail in where the door seal attaches to. So last week when I did that, we had a measurement of about 78 1/4 from the corner of the cab to the drip rail. So I'm just gonna make that same measurement here. All right, so I got my tape measure here. I'm gonna run that down into the corner of the cab there. Hold that there, just like that. Now, I've got that kind of forced into the corner. We've got the tape measured across the top of the hinge, and then I'm looking at the very tip of this rail right here, and looking at the tape measure. Let me get the tape fit into place there, and we're looking at maybe 78 5/16 there. Is about what we're measuring there. So we're going to go around to the other side and measure that. And then if I need to, we'll make an adjustment on the corners of the cab. So what we can do is we can push the cab this way, each corner in or out, and that's going to adjust the squareness of the cab. Spoiler alert, I've already done this measurement and we're within a 1/16 of an inch. So, but I just want to repeat again, show you guys how I'm doing this. Okay, so we got the tape down the corner down there, and it's looking like somewhere between 78 1/4 and 78 5/16. It's probably right between them. So we are less than a 16th of an inch out of square. I'm really happy with that. That's pretty darn good. I don't think we're going to improve on that. The next thing up that I need to do is, now I've already got this kind of clamped in place. I just wanted to see, once I had everything clamped in place, if that was going to affect the square of the cab. It does not. So what I need to do, I need to take this apart. I'm going to prime the back side of this panel, and then I need to drill a few spot weld holes in our patch panel here that we can burn this panel to this. I have to drill a few spot weld holes down here as well as here. That way we can attach this to the rocker. And then once we've got all that drilled out, primed, ready to weld in, we'll get it burned in, and that's gonna do it for this video. So that'll give us strength in this cab corner. And then I'm just gonna turn around and I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. But I'm not gonna film that, guys, because you've already seen me do it once. I'm just gonna repeat the exact same thing on the other side. So you'll have seen me do it once. You get the idea how to do it. And I don't wanna bore you with these videos. So let's get to work tonight. I'm gonna take this all apart and we're gonna start marking and drilling out all of our spot welds. right, I got this thing primed up. So what I'm using over the areas that are gonna get welds is a weld through primer. Now, I've used two different types here on this project. I've used a zinc weld through primer and I've used a copper based weld through primer. 100% I would recommend the copper weld through primer. It just it has a much cleaner weld. I felt like when I was welding through the zinc weld through primer that I was burning through like you would paint, and it felt like it was creating a lot of deformities in the weld. You know, when you get a lot of oxygen in a weld and it starts to bubble up and get really porous, that's how I felt the zinc weld through primer was working. The copper weld through primer seems to work much better. So that's what I'm gonna go with moving forward. Just a little tip, if you're using weld through primers, that's my preference. Everybody's gonna have their own preferences. Okay, the first thing I'm gonna do here, I'm just gonna kind of start fitting this panel into place. I'm gonna do this lower portion first. I'll tack these 5 tacks in, and then this one, and then we'll start fitting this in nice and tight up here. There's gonna be a little bit of adjustment up here. I do want it nice and tight down here, and it kind of slots into this corner. So I just wanna make sure those all get to where they need to be. Looking much better. Now, the metal work's not complete up here. I did throw some primer on it. I really only threw that primer on there to keep the thing from flash rusting. I'm not gonna do all the metal finish work and the body work until the very end on this cab. So I just wanna throw some primer on it to smooth it out, smooth the appearance out, kind of get a good feel for how it's gonna look. We're gonna end up going back and sanding that, doing some more grinding. I'll end up having to put a little filler in there just to kind of clean things up a little bit, sand that down, prime it and paint it. But that's gonna be way down the line. So for now, I just threw some primer on there just to keep things from flash rusting. But you get the idea. This is such an improvement. It's a huge improvement. And now I've got the back corner of this cab locked in on this side of the truck. And then when I get the other side done, we'll have that back corner in locked on that side of the truck. So big progress. Things are looking really good. Like I said, I'm not gonna do the other, I don't think I'm gonna do the other side on camera. You guys have seen it once now, and I'm gonna be doing a lot of sheet metal videos here, so I'm gonna try and keep the repetition low. I don't want to do a lot of the same videos kind of back to back. I do it on the left side of the truck, then I do it on the right side. So yeah, I'll probably just do a lot of that work off camera. So that's what I'm gonna do next. I'm gonna get that side, that door, I'm gonna get that passenger side door fixed up. Once that's completed, I think the next thing I need to do is then start working on the back wall of this cab. So I need to get all this cut out and fixed. I am gonna end up having to cut the flange out of the floor as well. I got to looking at it, it's just too far gone. That back flange is just garbage on there. I'm gonna try and keep it as simple as possible. If I can get away with just cutting down the flange and putting a new flange on there, and then fixing the back wall of the cab and then spot welding all that up. That's what I'm gonna do. But I'm basically gonna do whatever it takes to get the rust out of the back of the cab. We want this cab solid. We don't want exhaust fumes sneaking into the cab. Which reminds me, there's gonna be some seam sealer on all these pieces as well. Again, I'm not gonna do the seam sealer until the very end. When I get to the end, we're gonna have a lot of seam sealing to do along the floor. Pretty much the whole perimeter of the cab, all these panels that we're putting back in, all that stuff's gonna have to get seam sealed. So we're gonna do that later on down the line as well. For right now, we're just trying to get the good solid metal back into the cab and make this thing solid as a rock again. We're a long ways off from that, but we're making progress, one little project at a time. So with that said, if you don't work on your projects that will not work on themselves, get out in the garage, get building, and I'll see you on the next episode of Cody Builds.